Hello and welcome everybody, it's Draskyl here doing another replay analysis at the 9K level here in Europe. I wanted to do a couple of games where we talk about supports and what you can do and what you should be doing because it's a very open-ended thing. In this particular replay, we're going to be watching the perspective of a lion. This is Immersion, I believe, from the CIS region. So what we're going to do is we're going to watch the replay. I have not seen this game yet, and we're going to go step by step kind of his decision making, you know, what he could be thinking when he's making movements around the map. And the purpose of this video series, we'll call it, because this will be the first of many, is that I want to help people understand as a support what you can do to make the most use of your time. At the low level, oftentimes supports 4 position, 5 position, they spend quite a bit of their game just walking around aimlessly, not really sure what they can contribute based on their hero and based on the matchups. So we're going to try to cover every single replay a different scenario where what you're going to want to do is going to be different based off of what hero you are, you know, what the enemy team composition is like, what your lane's like, and all that other stuff. So when it comes to this game, the first thing that I want to note is that this is kind of a niche scenario already because there is a Broodmother. Right now we're in patch 7.29b, and this hero is fairly prevalent, and the future might not be that way. But the reason I wanted to look at this game specifically is because there are games where you will have a very strong hero that is going to be able to take over a good chunk of the map. And I want to see how Immersion handles that and what he feels are, you know, the best steps to get his team to a victory. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and start. We can first look at his items in the beginning of the game. He's got 1 Tango, Fairy Fire Branch, 1 Salve, and a set of words. So this is nothing like too crazy as far as the starting inventory goes. Pretty standard stuff. Lion doesn't really need mana regeneration because he can get mana drain at 2. And they're going up towards the top lane, most likely to either scout or place a ward, or perhaps both. In a lot of games, well, actually, just go ahead and pause it for a second. In a lot of games, you're going to have situations where you could theoretically first blood based on your heroes. Now, this game, it is quite difficult for Radiant's heroes to deal enough damage to anybody to kill them if it's not the Pudge or the Hoodwink. So like Kunkka's really tanky, Luna's fast, Darkseer's pretty tanky. So getting kills on those particular people is kind of tough. And the Pudge and the Hoodwink are the best bets because Hoodwink has the lowest HP, Pudge doesn't really have armor, and he dies really quickly to auto attacks. So if you're starting the game and you're a support, getting a deep ward before anybody sees you is really nice because they're going to have to guess where your ward placement is. There's not going to be, oh, I saw that guy walk in this tree and then he must have placed that ward because now it's not in his inventory. There's nothing like that. It's just 100% you have to guess. Does he have a ward? Does he not have a ward? So we'll see if Immersion wants to do anything like that or if he wants to block the camp. There's tons of things you can do here. So he is going to go for the camp block. You can hold alt there, see it's inside the spawn box. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him place a lane ward as well, and there it is. Okay, cool. And again, I have not watched this game, so everything that's happening I will be watching for the first time as well. I kind of wanted that to be an element of the series that we're doing so that, you know, we can think it through. You know, hopefully you guys watching at home and then, you know, me at the same time. And maybe we don't always get everything 100% right, and that's okay, because Dota's a complicated game, but we'll do our best. So runes are spawning. You can see how, because Immersion walked top immediately without hesitating, that he had time to place both of his wards, and he could go to the rune with his brood to try to secure it. So he didn't waste any time. He didn't think about, oh, maybe I want to go bottom and try to kill. Maybe I want to go top and try to kill. He just said, no, I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm going to place my wards, and then I'm going to walk to the rune. Just really, really simple stuff. We do have a pause here, so we'll see. Hopefully this doesn't last too long. Someone has DC'd it. Yeah, it's the puck. Okay. So we're just going to fast forward through this. Didn't know there was a pause, but it's fine. Bounty runes are going to be 2, 4, 2s, so completely standard start. Now the one thing also to keep in mind here, Lion is traditionally played right now as a 4, It doesn't mean that he can't be a 5. It just means that typically this hero does want items a bit more. So having to buy like all the sentries and all the smokes and all the dust detracts from your ability to get items. So he's got another sentry already. This is something also very important to always look at when you're watching a replay of a support, is how heavily they're emphasizing having a pull camp available. And the general rule of thumb is this. When you are stronger than your opponent, it is almost always good to have the large camp available to pull for yourself. So what that means is when this brood starts getting levels, you know, 5 or 6 especially, even in the early stages, because it's very difficult for the dire heroes to commit to going on these two, it means that pulling is going to be a lot easier for them, and getting the brood 6 faster and pulling the lane back, getting it in a safe place for the brood to farm, is going to be quite nice. Luna Hoodwink is not a weak lane by any means. They actually have quite a bit of damage starting at around 2 or 3. So they will have to play not super cautious, but you know, they can't go super crazy and try to dive and go for kills, because Brood's not quite the same hero that she used to be. And that actually brings me to my next point in regards to judging your lane strength, okay? Broodmother got changed fairly recently to where her spawn Spiderlings is not her ultimate. And in addition, they also nerfed Insatiable Hunger by a pretty good amount, I want to say. I wonder if it still says right here. Okay, yeah, so they nerfed her level 1 lifesteal by 30%, which means her lane sustain is worse, and at the low levels, she doesn't really do any damage, right? So how do I gauge what we want to do in the lane? We're just going to simplify it as much as we can and say, our heroes both want levels. That's what we want. Lion wants level 6 really badly for Finger, because that's where all of our damage comes from. Brood wants level 6 really badly, because that's when she starts to take over the map, get the Spiderlings going, get all these creeps. So now we've come to the conclusion for our lane that our goal here is to try to get 6 on the Brood, and, you know, potentially get 6 on the Lion, but we're not going to prioritize ourselves over the core in situations where the core just starts steamrolling once they get ahead. Now, this is going to take some practice, because you're not always going to know your matchups super, super well. Obviously, you're going to encounter stuff you haven't encountered before, especially if you're a new player. But in this specific instance, the biggest goal is EXP. So now that we've defined what we want, how do we get to EXP? The first thing for me personally, as I've played quite a bit of 4 myself, is that I always want to stop the enemy 5 from pulling creeps, because that directly removes experience and gold from my core player who I'm trying to help. And at the same time, if it's possible and if I'm not dying for it, I want to try to get my own pulls as well. So because I know I want EXP for my Brood, and I know that I don't really care too much about my own EXP until a bit later, we now have a very clear set of things that we want to do. Block pulls, do our own pulls, protect the Brood whenever it needs to happen, and get her to 6 as easily as we can, right? Try not to die, you know, that kind of stuff. So we've got that all set up. We'll see how Immersion handles the situation. He does have another sentry right now. You can see that the clock is at 150. He might go for a body block. He might go for another ward placement. But he probably doesn't want the small camp to spawn. Yep, he's going to walk right into it. And he's going to prevent this pull. Now, a new player might look at this and go, yeah, but wait, he's taking a lot of damage. And he might even die, honestly. If there's another swashbuckle, he might actually just end up dying here. But the goal of the lane remains the same, right? He wants to give EXP to his core player. Now, what do we know for sure is happening, even though he potentially dies, right? A very nicely timed Fairy Fire and a stick. He's going to pop a salve. And all this, like this whole movement, what we're focused on is what's happening in the lane while the Hoodwink is chasing us away. So in a normal game when you're playing, and you look at your hero and you're thinking about what's happening to you, sometimes it's kind of hard to see what your impact is in the game as a support. So when you have situations like this where you just got chased around the map, you know, you had to use a salve, the Hoodwink is kind of bullying you because she was level 2 and you were level 1, it might not, to you as a 4-player or even a 5-player, feel that good for your hero. But if we look at the Brood, you know, he's getting more EXP. We have a wave actually pushing into our tower as we speak. So if we go to free camera right now, and we look at the amount of creeps that we currently have, so we have 2 range coming in, there's 2 melee right here, there's 3 melee creeps right here. I wouldn't be too surprised to see him get level 2 and then just go back to what he was doing. So right now it's 245. We blocked the pole at around 158, 159, and then we walked all the way this way, we walked down here, we had to use our regen, and then we went around. So it took us a little under a minute to make that route. So that's 2 creep waves that my Brood gets to farm, and then he gets closer, or she rather gets closer to the point where you're going to hit that power spike, and you're going to become the guy, or, you know, in this case, I guess, girl spider that just eats the map. That's what we want. So it's not a big deal, right? It's just not a big deal that we're level 1. He is going to get his mana drain. He is sticking around a little bit, doing a little bit of a experience thieving from the Brood, but he should still hit 3 off this wave. I think the range creep gets it. Yeah, it does. Okay, cool. So let's go back to player perspective. And now we're looking at a lane where the Brood is feeling, level-wise, is really all that matters, right? Now the Brood's gonna die here, which is kind of unfortunate. Let's see if there was anything that we could do differently. Maybe this is just not respecting the amount of damage these heroes do. This is a 2 Lucent Beam, 1 Lunar Blessing build, so this is more or less built for burst damage. So you throw out the Acorn, you get the Bushwhack. Brood is kind of rough against Hoodwink in the lane for this reason, because you can get tied to the tree very easily. And I do believe it also grants vision of the hero, so even standing over here to the left is not going to save him. I don't know if... He might have been standing a little bit too far back. Yeah, because he's going to get beamed again and he's going to die. So that's definitely not the ideal outcome of the wave being this close. But let's say, in general, it's kind of like... We'll say it's a 50-50. The Brood wasn't respecting the amount of damage that was coming out, and the Lion maybe could have stunned a bit sooner, right? But this is a mechanical thing, and the wave is not really under the tower yet. So the Brood's going to be able to come back. Missed 1 wave, and now the Lion has boots, so I expect him to just go back to the side. And we can actually make another deduction based on what we just saw about this lane. And the only reason I'm bringing this up is because it's really important for people who are trying to learn the game that they go, wow, that lane just does a ton of damage. So now what's another thing we can take away from us doing that pole block and having the Hoodwink chase us? If we think about it logically, if the Hoodwink's chasing us, and the Hoodwink and the Luna are never together because the Hoodwink's too busy hitting the Lion, that means there's never enough damage in the lane to kill the Brood, right? Because if the Brood dies to 4 nukes and just barely dies, then if the Hoodwink is not present, then there's no way the Brood can be killed, and that helps us reach our goal because all we want on the Brood is EXP. So is it good that the Lion actually came back to the lane and started like sitting under the tower and stuff for the furthering of the goal? Or would it have been better to try to pull the Brood away again and then give more space, or excuse me, pull the Hoodwink away again and give the Brood and the Luna a 1v1? Now, I'm not saying that you could have controlled that as the Lion in this situation, but it is something to note for a later point in time if you ever run into this matchup again. And that's what learning Dota is, right? It's learning matchups and understanding what is my contribution as someone who doesn't have a lot of EXP and doesn't have a lot of gold. What can I do to give the easiest possible time to the other guy? Like, what am I going to be able to do to help him? So if it was me, and I saw that, if I could find a way to separate those heroes, I would absolutely try. Because separating them removes their kill potential from my core. So they come back to the lane. The Brood is able to chase the Luna away a bit. Gonna get salved by the Hoodwink. And the lane is more or less, at this point, reset. I am gonna pause here really quick. I have to close the door. We'll just... RDO can edit this out. I'll be right back. Okay. So now we actually are going for a ward block here. This could be due to the fact that he perceives the lane as not being strong. Or at least right now, they are not strong enough to contest the pull based on the brood dying. Okay, he was just checking for a ward. The camp doesn't spawn for 30 seconds, so he has plenty of time to look for the other ward, which he finds. So there's two really common sentry placements. The most common one is the one down here to the right. And then the other one is by these trees. So if you place the ward in the middle of the camp, I can't actually see it when it's paused, I believe. Okay, so there we go. You can see how the sentry covers the whole box, right? You see high-level players do this a lot to put the sentry in the middle of the camp. It covers everything, and then you just kill the sentry yourself, and then the camp will spawn. And we talked about the camp spawning earlier, and he was just going for a basic D ward so that the large camp has the potential to spawn. And then we pull, we get more EXP, we achieve our goal. So everything so far that's happening is trying to achieve the goal of, I want Brood to get 6. We go back to player perspective. And again, the Hoodwink is chasing us, right? The Hoodwink is chasing us out. Now, from the Hoodwink's perspective, could we consider this good or bad? Should he be going for a pull, or should they just be going for this? Which could theoretically result in a kill. Lion does have boots. Yep, he's gonna die. Alright, so that's a death. There's no bounty rune to get. It spawns at 6 minutes. But the Brood is solo. He's checking in on the Brood's lane to see what's going on. But I would still argue that the Hoodwink being out of the lane is still very, very good for the game plan of the top lane. You could also say that perhaps if we were going to play this way, that being 1-1-1 instead of 2-0-1 would also be very good. Because the Hex allows us to kite for longer, and maybe we don't solo die to the Hoodwink quite as much. But this is a process, right? This is iteration. You keep doing it, and you keep doing it, and then hopefully you get to a point where, like here, again, if he had Hex, maybe that guy dies, right? Is the level 2 stun really contributing everything to the lane that we want it to? Probably not. But that's okay. Because everything else that we're doing is still going in line with the common theme. He's got another sentry here. Now, there's a bunch of reasons that you would want to place this sentry in particular. We know that we have a puck mid. Puck mid is very good at rotating, but you're not always going to be able to just casually walk from mid to top. So what does that mean? It means if my puck is going to rotate, and he does do a lane TP, the observer ward placed in this general vicinity, like in this big chunk that the sentry actually covers, it would get scouted. It would get scouted, and then the Luna and the Hoodwink would just run away, and nothing would come of it. So having this here also serves the purpose of if they had a lane ward. The reverse is also true. The Kunkka can TP to his own safe lane, kill the Brood, because Kunkka is one of the better heroes at ganking mobile cores that don't have some sort of invulnerability or magic immunity to escape from the X mark. So it's like a multi-purpose. If the Kunkka TPs because he sees a potential kill, removing the vision is really helpful. And if the puck TPs, removing the vision is great because the Luna or the Hoodwink could just die. And this is something that's kind of hard to, maybe kind of hard for the newer player to recognize in the game. But if you just say, my mid has kill potential, if he comes to my lane, dewarding your lane is always going to be good. Just all the time.
Money changes hands.
Radiant's middle tower is under attack.
So now we've rotated a little bit away from the lane. We're going to head towards mid. We know that our mid player just got forced out by the Kunkka. If you were watching the minimap, you could see that. But the state of the lane is actually still pretty solid, right? Creeps are coming into tower. They can't dive. Luna's not 6. There's not too much pressure to be applied in this particular situation. So I know that as a support, if my core, and especially as such being a Brood, some cases this might not necessarily be true, but as a Brood, if I go under my T1 and I'm just hiding, it's really difficult for the enemy team to justify diving me, right? So what do I know for sure? I know that I do not need to be there for him. The Kunkka's not going to do anything because he just committed to the puck. He's not going to TP top, so I don't have to worry about that. He's under his tower. everything's good, right? So what's the next best thing? If my brood can achieve her goal without me being there, what's the next best thing that I can do? And that is pretty much just hitting 6, right? Hitting 6 gives me a power spike. It allows me to cast Finger on enemies. You know, my 2 stuns into Finger is a ton of damage. I can rotate back to where the brood is in lane once she does get that level 6. And all of a sudden, how is the enemy team going to occupy that space, right? You have to think of the eventuality of the lane is that brood is almost always going to win, but getting there unobstructed and kind of using that advantage as best you can is the support's job, right? So once the brood hits 6, playing around her and ensuring that she can take over the map is great because it fulfills 2 purposes. It means that my hero is playing around the other person on the team who is strong, and in addition, if they're reacting to us, they're not chasing our PA. And I know we haven't really talked about the other lanes that much, but this video is really only meant for around the first like 15-ish minutes of the game, just to give you guys one example of things that you can do. Now, the rotating to mid is something that you would probably do most games as a 4, less so as a 5. Mostly because the 5 has other stuff to do, like placing wards and stuff. So we're just going to continue. He's just here for a little bit of EXP, and then he's probably just going to be on his way. Now, the mid matchup is going very, very well for the Kunkka, as you can probably see by the CS. 50-9 and 24-5, so that you cannot soak from that guy. He's going to use his time effectively here. Go for a little stack. And that stack is something that the puck can take later to kind of recover from the lane. So he did a bunch of things at the same time. The first thing was he notated that the lane was pushing, and he said, hey, I'm going to go mid. My brood's going to be fine without me for like, 45 seconds maybe. My puck cannot be in the lane, so I will be there soaking EXP and getting some gold that otherwise would go to no one. And then once the puck is back, I'm just going to walk back to my lane. Now keep in mind, he's walking everywhere. He's walking everywhere because having a TP available when you are a hero with stuns is very, very important. Like when he went to mid, he didn't TP to the tower. He just walked there because he knew that if he did TP, it opens up an opportunity for the enemy team to make a move. Alright, so our brood is now level 6. And as soon as the brood hits 6 and I land my spells, the result is that we get a very, very easy kill.
Dire's top tower is under attack.
So now that we know that the brood more or less doesn't need our help for the lane, me being up there accomplishes just really high kill potential. But if the brood doesn't want us around, and your core player is like, yo, just give me some space and go do something else, then as a support, it's usually best to just kind of be like, alright, cool, I'll give you your space, I'll find something else to do. And in this game, they have Brew, a Puck, and a Lion. So they do have ways of fighting, even if it's not around the offlane hero. And again, just walks to mid, hasn't used his TP, getting some more experience, and everything is more or less just... It's going well, I would say, at least for the top half of the map. Obviously, the puck is struggling. We see a coil use. This is the first TP of the game. The coil is going to result in 1 kill. Now, if we were to look at this retroactively, would we say that this TP was... Was it good or was it necessary? It might even result in our death. Okay. So he doesn't die.
Dire's top tower is under attack.
He's going to mana drain some creeps. He's going to have to get some more TPs as well. Oh, they have a ward there, so it looks like he will die.
Come on! Radiant's bottom tower is under attack.
So the end result of the TP was that we ended up dying. Maybe the TP itself wasn't the direct result of our death, but we did stay in the area, and then because we didn't know that there was vision, all of a sudden we get X'd in a place where we do not expect them to have vision of us, right? It's just like a surprise, and then it ends up being death. Very close to level 6. lets the Brewmaster take the tome because he is farther away from level 6. That's usually how it works. The hero who is having the rough early game usually should have priority on the tome as long as their hero does something with level 6. So in this case, Brewmaster, Primal Split, very good ability. Obviously want that. It might even be more fight-changing than having Finger of Death in some cases. But since he's so close anyway, it doesn't really matter. He gets the 6. They're going to immediately pop a smoke. This is also something that even... And again, for reference, I think I said this in another video, but I'm low immortal, which is not the best. It's like, it's okay, but not the best. Even in those games, people don't do this nearly enough. They have all of their abilities available, and they just smoke right away. There's no hesitation. There's no, let me kill this camp. Oh, let me get this item. None of that stuff. It's just, we have Split, we have Finger, we have Coil. Let's go. That's it. That's the only logic that needs to be there. Because no matter who you find, right, looking at the enemy team's draft, no matter who it is, they should die. They get coiled, there's a Primal Split, there's a Finger of Death. When you have your abilities up as a support, it is your job to coerce, for lack of a better word, your allies to make plays with you, right? And just say simple stuff. Be like, let's smoke, you know, draw a line in the map here. And I'm sure that there are a ton of you out there who are saying, yeah, but people don't listen to me and blah, blah, blah. This guy's going to miss his spells. It doesn't really matter. The thing is, it's what should happen, right? If we always say stuff like, they won't do this or they won't do that, and we don't try, then we are guaranteeing that nothing happens, even if it needs to. So you need to take the initiative as a support and, you know, give your allies a ping, be like, yo, let's go, you know, ping your smoke or whatever, draw a line, and just go. Whatever happens, happens. Maybe sometimes it works, maybe sometimes it doesn't work, but the reality is, if you're a support, it is your job to control the pace of the game through making calls and looking at the map and saying, like, okay, what needs to happen? Support's not the easiest role to play, especially the 4, because there's a lot of ways you can approach the game, and some of them are going to have more success than others. But in this case, you know, he gets the smoke, gets his allies together, he gets 6. The second he hits 6, they're smoked. There's no hesitation. So just remember that when you're playing these types of heroes that have these power spikes just based on level, like you're not waiting for a Blink Dagger, you're not waiting for a BKB, you know, just go. So they're actually going to pop their smoke into another smoke. They find the Kunkka pretty much straight away. He gets hooked out, but he's going to die regardless. The other thing about this play is that because they smoked towards their strong hero, they are walking in a direction where they know that somebody who is powerful and is an ally is going to be near. So if their smoke broke and it was next to the Brood, well, guess what? They're 4 heroes and they have all their skills. The result of that fight is most likely going to be that they win, right?
Hey folks, Editor Ardio here. Hopefully you enjoyed what you saw from the pilot episode of what I am planning on calling the Art of 4. We'll eventually figure out other names for the other roles, but 4 is a good position that we wanted to fill out knowledge in. Since you're seeing me, things went horribly wrong as we forgot to leave notifications off. We kind of dodged a bullet last time because there was nothing that played, so we were kind of fortunate on that way, but it's a risk that we're always going to have to take, such as the live environment. However, if you do want to see more, feel free to give a like, a subscription, and a comment, so YouTube will continue to give you this kind of stuff in the future as it rolls out. And if you want to see it live, you can always follow Draskyl at twitch.tv/Draskyl. 1 L, not 2. It's a very good clarification to make. But anyways, I'm not going to plug anything else, so I hope you have a good rest of the day. With that, peace.